Hello and welcome to the Wildcard Rewind podcast. I am back. We have the best two for the Wildcard Rewind. We have now seen who the Super Bowl teams are, and we're going to get into the games of this week. But first, let's hear the music.
I just want to rewind to when we were young at heart. Back to all those good times. Take me back to the start.
Yes, it is Monday night. We've had a dance. We've had a listen. One of these days, I'm going to stop the video of that of the music just so you can see us all dancing in the background. Like I said, I am back. I've had a couple of weeks off. It's been a bit of a shit time at home and with training and everything like that. So thank you, Hannah and Lewis, for stepping in for me. But we are the best two of the Rewind podcast. We are joined this week by the amazing Hannah. Hannah, how are you doing? How have the last couple of weeks been without me?
Well, I mean, I would say that we missed you, Paul, but it would be a lie. No, I'm only messing. Of course we missed you. It was just not the same. So I'm really, really pleased to get you back this week, Paul. Missed your cheeriness and laughing. Lewis and I can get very serious and into the weeds, and we needed you to drag us back out, Paul, and bring us back on track. So it's great to have you back, and I'm glad things are looking a little bit better and you're back on board with us. So I'm ready to chat some football with you.
Yeah, it's a good job I recorded you saying on my phone earlier that I'm the best and you're glad to have me back, and then you basically lie about it. But it is good to be back. It is good to chat. I have enjoyed the last couple of weeks listening to you guys and hearing what you guys say. I had plenty to say actually. I wish I was on last week because there was things that you guys said and I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to put my 10 pence in. So it is nice to be back and nice to be chatting. But something that you guys did last week where you were chatting head coaches and stuff like that. So I thought we'd sort of have a look because there's been a couple more announcements about head coaches. So we'll get straight into them first. So from what I gather, the head coaches that you guys haven't spoken about so far have been the Falcons have got Raheem Morris, not Raheem Mostert, as I put in the show sheet earlier and had to change it. Raheem Morris, who's the Rams defensive coordinator. The Panthers have hired Dave. You'll have to help me with this one. Canales.
I think it's Canales, isn't it? Or something
Canales.
Like that. Yeah.
Sorry, Dave, about the pronunciation, but the Bucs offensive coordinator. The Chargers have gone for Jim Harbaugh from the Michigan head coach, and the Titans have got Brian Callahan, the Bengals offensive coordinator. So, Hannah, I want to have a little, couple of minutes on each one of these, but is there anyone you want to start with? Should we start with the Titans? Because you know all about Brian Callahan as the Bengals offensive coordinator. How are you feeling about losing him? Do you think he'll do well as a head coach over at the Titans?
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I know of him from being at the Bengals, I think he's a great guy, and I think he worked really well with Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor to bring that offense together. Now, I think certainly I and a lot of Bengals fans have had our gripes about the offense in the past. Sometimes can seem quite stale. Often they use kind of, we have guys, so we're just going to let them do their thing kind of thing instead of scheming things up. But I actually found that when Joe Burrow went down this season, and they were working with the backup, Jake Browning, that actually they did some really great scheming, and you could see Browning kind of thriving, whereas I wasn't sure that they would be able to do that. I think a lot of the reason why things were stale and very static is because that's how Joe Burrow likes them, and not necessarily a victim of the offensive kind of style per se. So I actually think kind of as an offensive coach, I think he's going to be pretty good. I think his challenge is going to be that I think that the Titans owner and the GM say that they think that they have their franchise quarterback going forward. And basically, I think for him, it's a do or die based on whether Will Levis does well or not. So that's what makes me nervous. I think that he will be quite a good kind of motivator of men, and I think generally he'll be a good head coach. But I just wonder whether he's going into a bit of a sticky situation. What are your thoughts there, Paul?
I completely agree. If you look at the other three teams here, I kind of feel like, okay, the Falcons haven't got their franchise quarterback, but the other two have got their franchise quarterback, and it's all about building a team. Where the Titans have gone from being the number one seed in the playoffs to completely missing out on the playoffs, and I do feel like that team's fallen apart. And I think Derrick Henry may step away from the team this year, whether it's to somebody else, whether he retires. I don't know. I'm not to say. So I think you may be right. I think he is really walking into, he's walking into a bit of a horrible situation with the team, and they're going to want it's with the fact that they're saying they got their franchise quarterback, they're going to want to win games where, okay, they've got DeAndre Hopkins. He's a very good wide receiver, but he's at the end of his career. They've got at the moment Derrick Henry. He's a really good running back. He's at the end of his career. And, you kind of feel that they haven't got all of them pieces to go, do you know what? We're a team that can go out and win games. They haven't got a youthful team. They haven't got, there's a lot that needs to be done. I think if he's given that chance to say, do you know what? I'm going to tear it down and rebuild. I think he rebuild it the way that he wants. I think he could be okay, but I don't think he's going to get that opportunity. I think if he has a bad season next year and they want to win games, you may be looking at a head coach job available next season in the for the same team. So I think it's a tough one to take, that one. I think that was one of the head coach jobs out there that I was kind of worried about a little bit. One that you didn't want, There's a lot of head coaching jobs out there that you go, oh yeah, I'd quite like to walk into that one, but that's one where you're a bit worried for them. So we'll move on to another one that I think is a better situation, but I think it's a brave move, and that's going to be the Panthers head coach with Dave Canales. Did I say it right this time?
I think so. Let's go with it.
Nailed it. And he was the Bucs offensive coordinator. Now I believe he's only done a season at the Bucs, and it seems like a very big move. I don't think he's been in the NFL that long, and he's had one season with the Bucs, and I think the Bucs have been good, but I don't think they've been, we want him to be our head coach. And again, I think the Panthers are a team, because they've got their franchise quarterback and they haven't got a first round pick this year. I think they traded that away to the Bears. I think, again, they're a team that are sort of, we want answers straight away. And I think he may be stepping into a puddle that's a bit deeper than what he wants it to be honest. What do you think of him going to the Panthers?
Yeah, for me, this is the job, if I was a coach, that I would not want. Like David Tepper, I think just meddles way too much, and I think he's actually the roster is not the thing that makes this job the worst. It's the owner, ultimately. I definitely think, basically, obviously they took Bryce Young with pick 101. They don't have a first this season. They have to make Bryce Young work, particularly since CJ Stroud has done so well as well. Like they need to save face. So again, he's going to be a guy that I think it's a do or die based on how well Bryce Young does. And I can see why they've gone for him. Like, I totally get that he has only got 1 year of being an offensive coordinator. Before that, he was with the Seahawks. And, the year that Geno Smith kind of lit it up and was like a fantasy darling. Although he wasn't the OC, I think he was the quarterbacks coach or something like that. He's quite closely involved with that. So I think basically they've gone, oh, you're good with quarterbacks. Come here and sort out Bryce Young, which I think is what they want from him. And ultimately, if he can do that, then he's going to be really successful and do really well. And I think if he can't, then I don't think he's going to be a head coach for very long. So to me, this is the one where you are walking into something that is a bit scary, because we know how fiery David Tepper can be and how quickly he can turn on his coaching staff. So I would be nervous to take this one, but good on him. I don't know if this was the only offer that he's got or was going to get, and therefore he took it, or whether he really liked the idea of being at the Panthers. But, I wish him luck. It makes me nervous. I fear he's only going to be there for a few years, but if he can turn Bryce Young around, who knows?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think that's key. If you can turn Bryce Young around and get him firing on all cylinders, I think anything could happen. And for all we know, he may be saying, "Sod you, rewind crew. I am actually a good head coach." So we'll leave Jim last, and we'll just nip over to the Falcons head coach Raheem Morris, who was the Rams defensive coordinator. Now I like this job opening. I think this to me, if I got to pick which team I was going to go and be the head coach of, I think the Falcons is the one that I'd go for, because I think they've got, a good, well, I say good, they've got a very decent defense. I think that defense has played quite well this year. You've got a defensive coordinator from the Rams. I think he could do some wonderful things with the defense over in Atlanta, and I think they are a QB away from being very, very good on offense as well. They've got a lot of offensive players. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. I think there's a lot of talent there, and if they can put everything together, I think he's got a serious team to work with there. Now that would be the one. But I'd say that's the easiest job you can walk into. I think it is the easiest job. Arthur Smith was not a great head coach in my opinion, but he still managed to look like he was in a lot of games, even though he didn't even use Bijan in some of them. And I think as long as he's willing to use his players and start spreading the ball about and get them playing really well on defense, I think this is a good team to go and coach. Would you like the Falcons job? That's what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that there's a lot of skill position players there, isn't there, particularly on the offense. And like you say, that they took Jesse Bates from us Bengals. He played really well for them this year. I don't know if he ended up being All-Pro. I think he might have been second team All-Pro and Pro Bowl. So he played really well for them, and certainly they've got like a spine of their defense. I think there's still a little bit of work to do, but yeah, it's the quarterback, isn't it? But I think potentially they might have options on the free agent market, this year. Ultimately, they're not high enough to go up and get one. I guess if they really, really like one, they might try and move up, but ultimately that's going to cost you picks in future years, which maybe they would like. My suspicion is they're going to try and get a free agent here just to kind of round everything off. I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted Kirk Cousins, but will Kirk leave Minnesota? I'd be surprised unless they were really lowballing him. Could this be where Justin Fields ends up? I don't know.
I think there's a lot of. I think they basically looked at the Falcons. I know they did it a lot with the Cardinals. When the Cardinals were projected to have the number 1 overall pick, they were like, "Oh yeah, they're going to take Caleb Williams and trade Kyler Murray to the Falcons," And now that the Bears have got it, it's like, "Oh, the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams and trade Justin Fields to the Falcons," and it's people were like, "Oh, they're definitely going to trade with the team that are number 1 and get the quarterback that's there now." I'd like to see Justin Fields at that Falcons team. I really would. But I just don't. I don't know the Falcons are going to be that team that are going to pay what the Bears are going to want for Justin Fields. I think, like you said, I think they'll just go to the free agency market and maybe pick up a cheap quarterback. Somebody, like you said, like a Kirk Cousins, if he hits the free agency market, I think they'll go and pick him up and see where they go from there. See how they get on for maybe 12 months, and then maybe look at getting a quarterback in the draft, see where they end up, see whether it's worth moving up or playing that sort of free agency market. I don't see. I don't know if you feel the same. So with what I've seen with teams recently, sort of trading, making these big trades, the only team I think it's worked for making a big trade recently is the Texans. The Texans, when they did it with the Cardinals and they paid a 24 first and all of this just to get Will Anderson Jr. with that 3rd pick, and they moved up and stuff like that. Apart from that, I can't really remember a team making a big move in the top sort of 5, maybe even top 3 picks in a draft where they've been successful. The ones that recently popped to my mind are the 49ers for Trey Lance, and then the Panthers for Bryce Young. They're just in the last couple of years. I just don't see teams making these big moves now to go and get a player because it just doesn't seem to be working out for them the way that they want it to work out for them. Do you see teams maybe making these big trades for big players now?
I think they'll probably be more cautious, but desperation often wins out. The thing I think with the Falcons is it seems to me unlikely that they're going to trade up. I don't think they will in the draft. The reason I question whether they'll consider Justin Fields is that if they don't get Kirk Cousins, really you're looking at quite a reasonable drop-off, really. In the free agent market, you're looking at like a Jacoby Brissett, that kind of tier. I guess the other one you could potentially look at is something like a Baker Mayfield, if he'll move from the Bucs. Obviously, his contract is up at the end of this season. But yeah, I mean, if you don't get a Kirk or a Baker, then you do have a bit of a drop-off. I think Jacoby does well in short bursts, but I think, probably won't want him as your starter. And then you're looking at your Drake London, your Kyle Pitts, your, Bijan, and you're wasting their rookie, cheap young years getting all of these kind of, we'll hobble it together for 12 months and see if we can do anything. Whereas, we might be able to crawl in the playoffs, but we won't make any noise. So to me, I think it might be worth, trading that second, making a bit of a swing for Justin Fields and seeing, where it goes. Because if it works, then potentially, great things, you're going to be in the playoffs for a few years to come. And if it doesn't, well, it's not your first rounder gone, and you go again. I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Yeah. And going with what you were saying there about these players and their contracts, Kyle Pitts was drafted in 2021. So he's now going into his 3rd year. So this time next year, he'll be going into his 4th year. That's when he's going to, right, let's start talking contracts. And, the prospect he was, I know he hasn't done anything like what we all thought he was going to do, but, is he going to be somebody that's demanding a high pay and everything like this? And then, you're talking the year after, is it the year after it's Drake London? Then the year after that it's Bijan. And, you start getting to the point where you're going, we're still trying to find our quarterback. And yet all of these players are now demanding these big contracts and stuff. So, yeah, maybe you are right. Maybe they are the team that do pay up to go and get a Justin Fields. I don't know. Maybe that's it's going to be an interesting job for him. Like I said, that would be the one that I'd want to do. I'd find that one the most challenging, and it's got the best pieces to put together. But let's move on to the Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh, or as you called him earlier, the QB whisperer. No, I'm only joking. But he's come from Michigan, and when I looked at his stats earlier from when he was at the 49ers, he actually turned the 49ers around and didn't have a losing season with the 49ers. And then after he left them, I believe they had a losing season every season until 2019 when they made it to the Super Bowl, I believe that year. So he's obviously come into the NFL before. He's done it in the NFL. He's shown that he's a great coach. How do you feel with him taking over the Chargers? Are you a bit more excited about this Chargers team going forward? Do you think maybe he's somebody, because we all expected it this year and the head coach massively let them down. Do you think that this year we can all get excited again about the Chargers and we might see a little bit more life in that team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a great deal about him. I don't really watch much college. I wasn't really watching NFL all that much when he was at the 49ers. But what I do know from, his history is that he's a winner, and he's won at the NFL level. He's won at the college level. I think he's probably going to come in and kind of start up a winning culture. My question about this team is the roster. So much of it is getting so old. I mean, the great thing about, he's got the QB. That's the great thing about the job. Probably one of the most difficult things to get sorted is already sorted. However, Keelan Allen's getting really old. Mike Williams is always injured and not that great. Josh Palmer, he's fine. Wide receiver 4, who knows who it is anymore. Austin Eckler, old, probably going to leave. Who are the backups? Nobody much to note. And that's just on the offensive side of the ball. The tight end, they don't have a young one, do they? It's Gerald Everett. He's old. And then if you look on their defense, everyone's old as well, or like Crumbly, or and I think they certainly do have some good players. They've got some key pieces: the left tackle, the quarterback, Derwin James, the safety. These are all really great players. They've got Joey Bosa, although he's getting old. Khalil Mack, he's getting old. So my question about this is the roster. Is he going to be able to cobble it together enough to be like winning straight away? I think ultimately he's going to be a winner, but is it going to take him 1 or 2 seasons to get the pieces in to make them a winner? Would be my question mark.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I want you to take back what you said about Gerald Everett, because he's a legend.
He's old though.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. He doesn't matter. He's a legend. Okay.
Did he help you win a fantasy league?
No, I had so much Gerald Everett this year. He probably didn't help me anyway, but I've got a soft spot for Gerald Everett. Okay, so leave him alone. And you forgot to mention the number 1, the first round pick from last year, Quinton Johnson. He's young. He just can't. He just can't catch a ball. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these head coaches play out. There's a lot of new head coaches this year, so it's going to be quite a fun one. So should we talk some championship matches?
Let's do it.
Should we get into chatting some of these? We'll start with the first game that was last night. And just a quick message to my older brother, who's a Ravens fan. I'm really sorry for your loss. Just a quick message to all of the community. We're sick of Patrick Mahomes making it to the Super Bowl. But yeah, so the Chiefs were victorious last year, beating the Ravens 17-10. Hannah, do you think the Chiefs were that good, or do you think that the Ravens were maybe a little bit, what's the word? A little bit like stuck in the lights as such, and it was a big occasion for them and they didn't show up, but the Chiefs are so used to being in this game that it was sort of normality to them. Do you think that maybe played a part in last night's game?
But potentially, I think ultimately the Ravens weren't quite the team that we'd seen them be for the rest of the season. For what reason that is, I mean, it's difficult to say. Maybe, the occasion probably didn't help there. I do think the defense played well. At the start of the game, they couldn't really stop Mahomes as much, but obviously as we got into the game, they really shut them down. Second half problem was it's a little bit too late at that point. I think ultimately, damn you Chiefs, I'm getting so fed up of them. Obviously, if I was in the NFC, I wouldn't care so much, but as an AFC team supporter, I'm just fed up. Like, how? Like, they were awful. The offense was awful the whole of the regular season. As soon as the playoffs start, boom, 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 he makes enough plays to win. I'm like, what? Ultimately, I think the strength of this Chiefs team is its defense. We know that this offense is nowhere near some of the Chiefs offenses we've seen in the past, but they're doing just enough to get them the win, and that's all it takes. I genuinely thought that this Ravens offense would kind of move the ball well enough that they would stay ahead of the Chiefs and they would ultimately win, and it didn't work out like that last night. And as I say, I don't know what that was, whether Lamar got a bit twitchy and the occasion, the pressure, all got a bit much. Same for everyone, or I don't know what it was, but they just weren't quite the team that we'd seen for the rest of the time.
I do a thing with some of my friends where we basically do a playoff thing where we guess the teams that go through and stuff like that. And found out today that out of 12 of us that do it, 12 of us said the Ravens, because you'd have backed the Ravens, because the Ravens have been a really good team. They haven't, they've had their down weeks. Like every team, I feel this season, there's not been a team that have gone day one all the way through to this point and just completely dominated everything. Even the 49ers have had weeks where they were beaten and they've lost games, and everyone's had down weeks. But the Ravens have just seemed to be that team that you've like, this team are one of the, they are phenomenal. They've been doing it as best they can every week and stuff. And like you said, the Chiefs have been average at best all season. They were calling this Pat Mahomes' down year. That was my next question to me. What do we think of Pat Mahomes' down year? Pat Mahomes' down year, and he's in the Super Bowl. What? I'm sick of it. Hannah, I'm sick of it. Honestly, I'm genuinely sick of it, okay? And I felt this way about Brady, and we can't knock what Brady did, and he was absolutely phenomenal and everything like this, but I was sick of it. By the time he got to the end of his career, I was sick of us talking about a Super Bowl and going, oh yeah, Tom Brady's at the Super Bowl again, And here we are. We're early on into Pat Mahomes' his NFL career, and yeah, we're going again. Oh yeah, Pat Mahomes is in the Super Bowl. Pat Mahomes is in the Super Bowl. He doesn't book holidays. He doesn't even book a holiday for when the Super Bowl's on, because he knows he's going to be playing football then, And it's just, I'm sick of him. I'm really sick of him. But I thought the Ravens were the team. I thought the Ravens were going to be the team to stop him. And honestly, I said it to my brother, condolences to him. But we were actually chatting, me and my brothers last night, going, how amazing is it going to be? We've been to see the Ravens this year, and they could be the Super Bowl team. And it's like, oh, we saw the team that made it to the Super Bowl this year, and you were at that game as well. And it was going to be amazing. And no, the Chiefs do what the Chiefs do, and they turn up and they win a game. But one thing I will say about this game, I don't know if it was the coaching staff, I don't know what it was, but there seemed to be many times where Lamar Jackson was just waiting for the play to happen, waiting for players to get open and stuff like this, waiting. And you're like, why is he not running now? Just use your legs, just run. There's an opening for you, run down it now. And I don't know if they'd said, don't run too much. We don't want you getting injured if we make it through to the Super Bowl or what. But it just felt like he was sort of a bit reluctant to use his legs, which is his greatest weapon at times. And I think there's times where he could have gone, the play's not there, I'm going to run, I could maybe get us a first down or something like that. I don't know if maybe they were being cautious with him and they'd rather him not run and get to the Super Bowl or what. But it just felt like he was sort of on a leash last night, if I'm honest. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And I mean, ultimately, we don't know, do we, what the plan was, but I think maybe they were a bit surprised at like how good this Chiefs defense kind of came out and played, and I think potentially they weren't quite ready for that. Lamar did the odd silly thing, throwing into triple coverage, and things like that didn't help. And I think they were kind of on the wrong end of the turnovers, yesterday, which didn't help. And, look, ultimately, the Chiefs offense didn't actually do all that much. But as usual, Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce did just enough to get them over that line, So it's tough because I really thought that the Ravens would play really freely on offense, and it just didn't feel like that was the case. And I think that's what I felt disappointed about, because I know that when they play freely and they're playing some of the styles that they've been playing before, they probably could have beaten the Chiefs really quite well, and it just didn't quite happen. And look, these things happen. Another AFC North team has been knocked off by the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. That's the second year in a row. It happened to us Bengals last year, and commiserations to them. I actually dislike the Chiefs more than the Ravens, surprisingly, even though they're in the same division as we are. So I was hoping that they'd lost. But here we are again. I mean, I am totally fed up with Patrick Mahomes, partly because he's always dueling it out with Joe Burrow, and we have won actually the majority of those duels, but our last big duel was obviously last season in the AFC Championship game, and he beat us. So I'm mad about that because he then went on to win the Super Bowl. So it makes me mad that they're doing so well. But when you actually look at this offense and what it's been this year, the only reason, in my opinion, that they're in the Super Bowl is Patrick Mahomes, and it actually makes it even more impressive, you know, what he's done, because of how kind of shambolic and shoddy this team was looking, in the regular season. And somehow, some way, he gets everyone together, and they just manage to piece enough together to do what they need to do, and it's really impressive. Really annoying, but really impressive.
Yeah, it's really infuriating, isn't it? Even when you go, oh, he's got nobody to throw the ball to, and yet somehow, I think Rashee Rice had 115 yards and Travis Kelce had 116 yards, or it was something like they were that close, and they're like, oh God, man, even there's teams out there that have got such a better wide receiver core and a good quarterback, and they just don't seem to do it the same way. And we've spoke many times about how quarterbacks can put their team on their back and get them through. And we have said it before that Pat Mahomes is that guy that will put the team on his back and he will get them through. And he's done it yet again. And it is infuriating, but fair play to the guy. He is a phenomenal player. He's fun to watch.
It is crazy how much he runs in the postseason. So often, it just makes me laugh. The way he runs makes me laugh generally, but it seems to be like, oh, the players, they're going to sack him. Next minute, out he comes, tootling along, gets a first down, or he does something else crazy. Like, it's crazy how few sacks he takes. Like, the plays that he has, like, minimal negative plays, and it makes a massive, massive difference. It's just crazy what the guy does.
So before we move on, I want to ask you a question about Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to get into the rankings because we're going to do that after the next game, but I want to ask you a question. So here's the scenario. The Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Travis Kelce has a bit of a celebration with Taylor Swift because that's just what he does. Do you think if they win the Super Bowl that he retires?
Do you know what? I don't know, but I want to say no. I feel like he feels like he's not done.
What 100%. I believe. I feel like we're having deja vu because I feel like people had this conversation when Gronk and Brady were there, and they were like, "Oh, if they win the Super Bowl, do they retire?" and stuff like this. And then next year, like, "Oh, Gronk's back and Brady's back and all of this." And I do feel like Travis Kelce has more to give, but I don't know. I just get that feeling he is at the latter end of his career and stuff like that. And I do feel like he is the type of guy to go, you know what? I've got the ring. I've got, he set all kinds of records for tight ends. He's done so many great things. He's been absolutely phenomenal. I think if he gets that ring, I think he goes, do you know what? I'm done. I'm going to follow my girlfriend around the world when she goes and does concerts everywhere. And I'm just going to live a nice, easy life now and do my podcast with his brother. It wouldn't shock me, put it that way. It wouldn't shock me if he retires.
No, I mean, it wouldn't shock me, but I guess it all depends on what he wants from life, isn't it? And I don't know, I just have a feeling that his competitive spirit is still there. Although, look, he's been pretty injured this season, so maybe it's like, man, I'm over it. I do wonder whether he wants to retire the same year as his brother. I do wonder whether he might want to wait another year and then retire after. I don't know. I don't know whether he likes the scenario of them both going into the Hall of Fame together, or whether he would rather have his kind of own,
I didn't think of that, them two being inducted into the Hall of Fame the same year and stuff like that, Oh, that would be pretty special, wouldn't it,
It would, but I wonder whether he kind of wants his own little, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're, because you kind of go, oh, I don't want him to steal the limelight off the other one and stuff, but I kind of feel like they both sort of encourage each other to be the best that they can be and stuff like that. Like Jason Kelce was on that pitch as soon as the game finished and he was celebrating with his brother, and I think they'd both. I think that would be quite a special moment for both of them if they were both into the Hall of Fame the same time. And let's be honest, they're both going to be in it. So you know what I mean? I think it'd be quite cool. But I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a difficult one to say whether you think, yeah, he's going to retire, he's going to call it a day on the top. For all we know, the 49ers may win. I don't think so, but the 49ers may win. So he may not get that ring and he may just go, do you know what? I'm coming back for another year. So
yeah, I
don't
mean,
know.
my gut says he's not retiring, but like you say, if the Super Bowl happens and he decides he wants to ride off in the sunset, who would blame him?
Yeah. But yeah, so let's have a little chat about the game that should have gone the other way. The Lions versus the 49ers, 31-34 to the 49ers. I'll be honest, I was very much asleep while this game was going on. I've had a very, very busy weekend, and I was very tired. So I've tried to catch up today. From what I have seen of this game, it was an absolutely phenomenal game. If I'm honest, the Lions should have won it. I don't think a team that make it to the championship game get a halftime lead of 24-7 and give that up to any team. I think there was many mistakes made on the Lions side of the ball. Credit to the 49ers to come back from 24-7 down and come back and get the win. That just shows what kind of team that they are and the kind of mentality that they've got. But yeah, ultimately, I think the Lions should have put this to bed at halftime. And I don't know if you've seen on social media, is it CJ Johnson? Is it CJ Johnson or Gardner?
Gardner Johnson, yeah.
That's him. Waving goodbye to the 49er fans when they were 24-7 up. Don't celebrate too early, dude. You know what I mean? Until the final whistle goes, don't celebrate. Keep your head in the game. Don't celebrate too early. But yeah, it's credit to the 49ers and what they did. Did you manage to catch any of this game?
Yeah, I did get to see some of it. I didn't stay up, but I have watched it, subsequently. It's a massive shame, isn't it, for the Lions? I would have loved for them to have been in the Super Bowl. Obviously, when we very first started the Rewind pod, they were kind of our adopted team, and it's amazing how far they've come, from that kind of little upstart team that were just kind of a bit kind of peppy to like where they are now. It's amazing really what Dan Campbell has built. And I just think it's a crying shame really, because they could have won this game. And like you say, I think it was just little kind of errors. We always kind of knew this defense wasn't all that it had kind of lived up to, I suppose. It wasn't the defense that was going to be the thing that carried them, but they played so well in the first half, that defense, and I thought, if they could keep it up, they definitely would win this. But they just started to show their cracks, didn't they, in the second half, and the Niners just managed to work their way in and momentum change, and that was the kind of end of that. And then we had the fumbles, etc., and it just kind of added fuel to the fire. And it's a massive shame, because before the game I saw a world where basically the Niners blew them up, and the fact that they basically were knocking on the door of winning it is kind of testament to everything that they've done, and the play calling and the staff and how they've built the roster. I just think it's a massive shame. The Niners, again, another team that we're used to always kind of hanging around, and they're great. They have so many amazing players. You can't even name them all, how good they all are. But I'm just getting a bit bored of them. Like, I just wanted the Lions in there. Thought it would have been fun. Ultimately, the Lions probably would have lost. Although I don't know, they're pretty peppy. But the Chiefs, they just always find a way, don't they? But I just wanted to see them in the Super Bowl. I thought it'd be more fun. I'm kind of a bit disappointed, Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl. Like, it's kind of the worst scenario that we could have got, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember when all the start of the playoffs, I was asked by one of my friends who was like, who do you think makes the Super Bowl? And I was like, I don't care, as long as it's not the Chiefs or the 49ers. Literally, that was my answer. You know what I mean? And that's what we've got. Going to the Lions, I'm heartbroken for them, but I think you get to that point where you go, you've got a team that have got everything to lose, and you've got a team that have got nothing to lose. And you always fear for the team that got nothing to lose. And obviously, the 49ers came out in the second half. They've got nothing to lose. And the Lions had absolutely everything to lose. And I think, like we spoke about it with the Ravens, were they a bit thing? They're at that championship game. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, halftime, they're coming out. We've got a lead over the 49ers. We're going to the Super Bowl. Did they get ahead of themselves? You've got CJ Gardner-Johnson waving at the fans. Did they get to that point where they were celebrating too early? And the 49ers have just done what they normally do. They just win games, you know? That's the difference between a phenomenal team and a good team, you know? The Lions are a good team, but there's a phenomenal team in that 49ers. You know, it pains me to say it, but they are a phenomenal team. They've got so many great pieces. And I just think they had nothing to lose. They had nothing to lose. And it was like, if you want to play in the Super Bowl, you come back and you win this game. If you don't want to play in the Super Bowl, then, you know, your heads can already be on holiday. And I just think that 49ers team came out with nothing to lose. And the Lions had everything to lose. And they just didn't know how to just grind out that win. You know, I see it in so many sports. I see it in, you know, in football that I watch, the Premiership. You know, the teams that win the leagues are the teams that get these horrible grinding out a win, or they're 2-0 down and they come back and win 3-2 in the last few minutes and stuff like that. You know, and that's what the 49ers did. You know, the Lions had the lead and the 49ers came back and won it. You know. So my question, before we move on to the next bit, to you is, who's going to win the Super Bowl? Brock Purdy or Pat Mahomes?
I think Pat Mahomes.
Do you know what? I don't like either team, but there's one team I dislike more than the other. And I dislike the 49ers more than the Chiefs. So, you know what I mean? Come on, Pat Mahomes.
This is where you can tell our affiliations are different, right?
I'm team AFC, you're team NFC, yeah?
Yeah, I'd be much happier if the 49ers won. But he always does it. He can do it. Bloody Pat Mahomes. He freaking finds a way. Even if his wide receivers have no hands, he'll still win the Super Bowl.
And I speak on behalf of other co-host Lewis, who agrees with me. Come on, the Chiefs. sick of the 49ers and sick of them, and they always there or thereabouts. But yeah, did you see that thing on social media that was like the Super Bowl that we all want to see, which was the Ravens versus the Lions? The Super Bowl that we're probably going to get, which was the Ravens versus the Lions. And then it was like the star-studded Super Bowl that everyone thinks is written in the stars was the Chiefs versus the Lions. And it was like a picture of Taylor Swift versus Eminem and stuff like that, you know. I think that would have been an interesting one, you know. Yeah. But yeah, so we're getting a bit off track here, but let's chat a bit of fantasy, you know, because that's what we're all here for.
Doing right. 45 minutes in.
Yeah, let's chat a little bit of fantasy. So last week I heard you guys chatting about the Dynasty tight end 1 and Sam Laporta and stuff like that. Sam Laporta had an absolutely phenomenal game yesterday, in my opinion. He managed 13 targets, which is an unreal amount of targets, 9 receptions for 97 yards. I do genuinely believe that he is a really, really, really phenomenal tight end. And I know you guys were talking about Dynasty tight end 1. So I want to sort of take it a different way and go, let's talk redraft. Okay. So a lot of us, you know, I love redraft. A lot of us play in redraft. A lot of us do like charity tournaments. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand charity tournaments. A lot of them have different scorings and stuff like that. But let's talk tight end 1 in redraft, would you still take Travis Kelce? Now, I'm not going to ask you how early you take it, but would you take Travis Kelce over Sam Laporta if Travis Kelce comes back next year in redraft over Sam Laporta?
So this is where you're going to be like, oh, you're not actually,
Don't sit on the fence and go, I don't know.
No, it's not that. I
Straight
just
answer.
think a lot of it would depend on what their ADP is, But let's say that they're like next to each other.
Yeah, so we're into round 4. We're into round 4, and they're back to back. They're both sitting there.
So what I would say is, I'm just going to say the questions that I would have about each player, and then I'll give you an answer. So my first question for Sam Laporta would be, who is your offensive coordinator this year? And let's say Ben Johnson stays, which I don't think he will, then I would feel very confident and probably take, I think I would probably take Sam Laporta tight one, I think. My question for Kelce, and the thing that makes me nervous about Kelce is that obviously this year got injured very early in the season and he didn't really have a particularly good regular season, from a fantasy perspective. Obviously in the playoffs, he's like really got going, but it's the playoffs. My question mark is, he's older, he's been injured this season. Do you think the Chiefs are going to be a bit more sparing with him in the regular season? They're going to rotate him a bit more. They're not going to put so much on his plate so that he is healthy for the postseason and therefore can be unleashed at that point, which is basically what's happened this season, And I do wonder whether they kind of make that more permanent. And ultimately then, how much of a positional advantage are you going to get by taking Kelce at this stage? And I'm not sure that it's going to be a great deal. We know they've got that connection, but I think in the regular season they're going to try and not wear him down too much, so that in the postseason they can unleash that amazing connection. We saw that crazy touchdown that he got basically while the DB was draped over him. Kyle Hamilton it was, wasn't it? And things like that, where in these clutch moments he's there and he'll get the ball. I think they want to save that for the postseason. So I do question whether his usage is going to go down a bit next season. And I might be totally wrong. He might be healthy and they're, fire on all cylinders and he'll be doing everything. But my suspicion is that they're not going to want to put as much on him. And maybe they'll rotate him a bit more. So I would probably go Sam Laporta. However, I do question whether the Lions are going to take another wide receiver as well, which will dilute things a bit. What about you, Paul?
Do you know what? I like the question. Okay, I like the question because the way that your mind has just worked there, you've worked everything out, and you've just broke everything down, and then gone, yeah, right, okay. So logically, I'd go Sam Laporta. I don't know, and then you've gone, yeah. So I go Sam Laporta. But I do think the Detroit Lions take a wide receiver next year, which then puts it back in the spin. And then you're going to go back into the spiral and go, would I go Travis Kelce again? Oh, I think that's what I love. That's what I love about podcasts and questions like that, because you just see how everything is working in your head and you're speaking it out and you're talking yourself through it. And in my opinion, I think you just did a whole loop. Went with Sam Laporta,
and said no answer, haven't I?
And then draft day, they take a wide receiver, and all of a sudden you go, "Yep, Travis Kelce's back at number 1 again." You know what I mean?
I think the Chiefs are going to do the same. But basically, ultimately, if I draft 10 teams, I'll probably take Laporta in 5 and Kelce in 5, probably, depending on what I heard in the preseason or season type thing.
So what I'd say to you, okay? So my answer.
Yes.
I'm still Travis Kelce believer, so I think I'd still go for Travis Kelce because I believe that even on his down year, which he had this year compared to what we've seen in the past, he was still an absolutely phenomenal tight end. So I would still lean Travis Kelce in redraft. So nobody shoot me. This is redraft, not dynasty. Blah blah blah. But what I will say is I don't think I'm going to be taking a tight end as early as what some people will. So I feel like this year in redraft, I'm not going to have many of either. I know you said if you drafted 10 teams, you'd have 5 Laporta, 5 Travis Kelce. I think in reality, you'd have 10 teams. You'd have 1 with Laporta, 1 with Kelce, and 8 without either of them, because I think you're thinking the same way as me. I don't think I go for one in the first 3 rounds, maybe even the first 4, because
Yeah.
I feel like in my honest opinion, I feel like if I'm playing super flex, I'm going QB, wide receiver QB, or wide receiver QB, something along them lines. Then I'd look at my tight end, and I think by then somebody has pulled the trigger on Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta. So I feel like I may have a sorry, I keep jumping in every time you're going to talk. I feel like I may have a lot of somebody like, without sounding like a homer, Trey McBride, maybe your TJ Hawkinson, maybe your George Kittle, that sort of area of player. Happy to wait on tight end, but still going to go early enough that I get a half decent tight end, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what I would have said as my original answer, but Paul, you wouldn't allow me to use the ADP argument, which you've just used on me, by the way.
I still said I'd rather Travis Kelce at tight end 1. So I answered my question and then went a different route.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, that's exactly my thoughts, to be honest. I personally think that these guys are going to be drafted too early for me to want to take them. You know, I do think that this season was a massive kind of, not lesson, but, you know, it really showed that really because we didn't get those performances from Kelce and Andrews that made them, you know, that massive positional advantage. Actually, you harmed yourself by taking a tight end so high in the draft. Well, this is another thing for us to discuss. Technically, you should have harmed yourself. However, a lot of these kind of round 2 players really didn't perform that well. So you've probably got away with it this season just because of the way that the kind of draft fell, in that like loads of these middle round, you know, second round wide receivers, your T. Higginses, your Jalen Waddles, you know, they all kind of underperformed versus expectations. So actually, really, Kelce probably wasn't a bad pick because, you know, what you could have got is these guys that didn't perform as we would have liked them to have done. So you probably got away with it this year, but, you know, that's not going to be the case in every season. You know, in the majority of seasons, by taking Travis Kelce, who is not going to give you a massive positional advantage probably now, you know, based on his age and where he is in his career, you know, likely you could miss out on one of these kind of potential gems, you know, Tyreek Hill, etc., late round 1, where kind of Kelce was going this year, or early round 2. You know, there may be some of those running back kind of gemmy guys there that you could pick up, you know. So I think taking them so high ultimately is probably going to harm you in your drafts. So I just don't think it's worth doing. I personally would never take George Kittle in a redraft league. I still don't understand why people want to do it. He is like the epitome of boom bust. Like, you've drafted him so high, so you feel like you have to put him in your tight end slot every week because he has the ability to reel off 30 points. However, 9 times out of 10, maybe not that many, but many times he earns you 3 points, you know? So he's either nowhere or everywhere. And in redraft, he's too much of a headache for me. I still have no idea why anyone takes him in redraft. He's a pain in the bum. Great, you know, yes, certainly in best ball, etc., I would definitely pull the trigger because of those massive weeks that he can have. But in redraft, no, thank you. Don't want anything to do with George Kittle, thank you.
You don't want, you know, tight end, 6 on the season.
Yeah, I know he is, but when you dig in this week to it, right?
Yeah.
So you start talking about something else. Let me just.
I've got it here. So he was 4.6,
right,
4.9 points, 6 points, 16, 1.9, 27, 1.1, 13, 23. Then he had the bye, 20, 22, 4.9, 10.8, 16.6, 7.4. So I completely know what you're saying. What you're saying is, you know, look at that. Week 1, week 2, he lost you the week. Week 3, he
Exactly.
won you the week. Week 4, he lost you the week. Week 5, he won you the week. Week 6, he lost you the week. You know, so I completely get what you're saying.
And that's too much of a headache for me. You know, I don't want to have to try and guess, is he going to win me or lose me the week? Like, I'd rather have someone who, okay, might not win me the week, but he's not going to lose me the week.
Evan Engram didn't have. You know, he finished quite high, but it was like 9, 11, 13, 12, 6, 11, 9. You know what I mean? He was consistent high numbers, where George Kittle is like 1.1, 27.7, you know? So, yeah. But what I love about this is I asked you this question about 10 minutes ago on who's going to be tight end 1. And we spoke for genuinely 10 minutes about Sam Laporte and Travis Kelce. I can't wait to have a whole hour where we get to just talk about tight ends and what sort of rank we have them all and stuff like that. It's going to be great.
I know. You see, this is what we did last week. I think we were talking about tight ends again, and honestly, I could go on about it for ages, because I do think that we get very excited about tight ends, and I think ultimately, I think people don't realise how much like value you can lose by taking them really high.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, Kelce historically has been worth it, but as we have seen recently, it's not been as worth it this season. So I'm super interested to see where ADP falls.
Yeah,
you know,
I completely agree. So
really want to know where they're going to take him.
To answer my question,
Go.
your Sam Laporta 1, Travis Kelce 2, but ADP plays a big part in it.
Exactly.
And we're not taking one within the sort of first 3-4 rounds. So
no, I personally wouldn't know.
Like I said, after once the Super Bowl's done, I can't wait to get into like positional breakdowns and stuff like that with you guys, and it's going to be quite interesting to see how players have paid out. You know, how they've gone with their ADP. Have they paid the price back? Have they not paid the price back? How we're doing and looking into next year and what we're going to do with them. That's the fun of the off season, isn't it? You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think we're done for the day. So with that, we'll get to the end of the show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on X at Wildcard Rewind. I will give a quick mention to the Wildcard Devi that started their first episode last week. I have listened to it. It's absolutely amazing. I think Devi is an up-and-coming format that we should all get involved in. It does a lot with college football, and the 3 guys over there that are doing that are amazing. Please go check out their show. But head on over to our YouTube channel, search for us at the Fantasy Wildcard, and make sure you like and subscribe. And we shall see you guys next week.
Take me back to the start.